This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
Hello, beautiful. This is the Awakening to More podcast, and I am Alicia Jumay Temmerman. Have you ever asked yourself, is there more? Or thought to yourself, there must be more? In this podcast, we explore all of the areas of your life where you might be yearning for more. More meaning, more connection, more time, more growth and abundance, but also more patience, calm, peace, acceptance, and of course, fun. From spiritual awakenings and journeys, relationships, business, parenting, and all of the things. Join me as I share from my heart to yours, along with amazing guests, to help you find your own way home, to create a life you relish and love. Thank you for being here. Let's jump in. What a privilege and honor and just total fun for me to have just had a conversation with Debbie Malone in the spaces of spirituality and working with the psychic senses. There are some standouts in Australia, and Debbie Malone is one of them. Remember that show with Patricia Arquette called Medium? Well, Debbie Malone is like our homegrown Aussie version of her, a psychic detective. How cool is that? Debbie is an internationally acclaimed psychic medium, author, psychic detective, as I mentioned, and spiritual teacher. She has spent more than 30 years assisting police departments around the globe with high-profile missing persons and murder investigations. Debbie is a best-selling international author and makes regular appearances in the media. She's in high demand for speaking engagements, interviews on television and radio. So I was pretty chuffed when she said she'd come on my little podcast. She's a student of the prestigious Arthur Findlay College, a renowned spiritual teacher in her own right. She regularly leads spiritual workshops and retreats. She is also the psychic in residence at the New Idea magazine in Australia. She has, I think, a number of books. One that I've got in my hand is called Awaken Your Psychic Ability, Learn How to Connect with the Spirit World. So I could go on and on about this woman, but instead I'm just going to let you jump in and listen to our conversation. So this might, open your eyes a little bit further, a little bit broader of what is potentially possible between the two worlds, the seen and the unseen worlds, between the different forces that are happening here. So enjoy, my friends. Hello, Debbie. I am super chuffed, actually, I'd say, to be having a chat to you today as part of my Awakening to More podcast. I actually first came across you when I heard you on a podcast. I can't remember which one it was. And I rarely ever have readings with psychics because I believe it all so much. For me personally, I was just like, you know what, maybe I just know how seriously I take it. Where I think some people can be very light with it, but because I believe so much in all of the unseen forces, I don't necessarily do it unless it's someone that I really think, you know what, that this is the absolute real deal. And when I heard about you on a podcast, I just had like I'm going to book in with Debbie. And I did do that last year and had a really beautiful reading with you. And so then when I was thinking about guests on my podcast, it's like, I want to just reach out to Debbie and see maybe whether she'd say yes. And I was really glad. And super happy to have you on here. So welcome, Debbie Malone, to this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Alicia. I'm just as excited as you are, so it's good.
Oh, perfect.
Like-minded souls.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's so fun when you can talk with other humans about these things, which is not available to have conversations everywhere, because not necessarily everyone, sees things in the way that, not that we see everything exactly the same, but certainly when we're working with spirit teams and have friends who are not in body form, it's really affirming when you know other people who have all their non-bodied friends, I guess, and also are in communication with them. I think for me, it's been really, just affirming to know that there are other people out there that are also playing in the different spaces and the different worlds. So thank you for your time. I am wanting to ask you so many things, so we'll see how we go in getting through it all. But for those people who don't know you, I know you are a very well known. I don't know exactly the word you use for yourself. Do you call yourself a psychic medium, or what are the? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'm a psychic medium.
Yes. And you're very well known psychic medium in Australia. I know that you've been in various publications and in different forums. So many people will already know you, but for those who don't, I'd love you to share a little bit about how did this all start for you? Your spiritual awakening, or may have been right from the start, and I probably should remember because I have read your book, and I just shout out to everyone. I love it. It's so beautiful, Awaken Your Psychic Ability. And I know that we won't be able to get through everything. So everyone, you just need to buy this book and you'll see everything in there. But yeah, just share us a little bit about you and how it is that you came to be doing this work.
I think, well, I've always had it around me, but when I was a child, I used to see things in my room. I was terrified of the dark. I had my first near-death experience at 3, and then another one at 13. But I used to tell Mum that I'd see things, and she just used to tell me I was just trying to get attention. But I was absolutely terrified, and I shut it down because of that. Because I used to have all these things going on in my room. I used to go to bed with this big old transistor radio, the ones with the big tubes, the valves in the back. I used to sit it on a stool beside the bed when I went to sleep, because I'd hear voices, like muffled voices, and I'd see lights flying around in my bedroom. And it wasn't until I got older and started to understand what was going on, I realised I was seeing orbs and I was hearing spirit. And the first person that ever passed was my grandfather. He died when I was about 15, but I had a near-death experience at 13 when I had my first anaesthetic. I had my appendix out. So that was the beginning of changing my whole world. I remember the doctors asked me, because my heart stopped, and I was floating in the corner of the room in the hospital looking at my body in the bed. And in the morning they came to check on me, and they sort of said to me that your heart had stopped, and they asked me how I was feeling. And I told them what I saw, and everybody just sort of dismissed it like I was, made it up. It was a dream. And I remember Raymond J. Moody's book, Life After Life, had just come out, and I borrowed it from the local school library. And I read that cover to cover, and then I kind of put it aside because everybody was like, no one wanted to talk about that, especially way back then. I wanted to be a scuba diver, so I started going through my scuba diving courses, and I wanted to be a dive instructor and travel the world diving. And on my celebratory weekend of doing my advanced diving, I burst my oval window in my right ear, and I ended up having to get a skin graft, and I have tinnitus in my right ear. And that used to be very annoying, but then that later on became to be part of the tools that Spirit used to speak to me through, because they only speak to me in my right ear.
Interesting.
So I've had 7 near-death experiences now.
7?
And a lot of them, yeah.
Oh my God, this concerns me, because so many people in this space who are psychic mediums have had all of these near-death experiences. And touch wood, I haven't had one yet. But I mean, I don't actually mind if it's a near-death experience, because I'm going to come back. And this is kind of a strange thing to share. But when my awakening started, when I was about in my teen years, I remember being so interested and fascinated with near-death experiences that part of me actually thought, you know what? I actually want to experience one. I know it's not my time to go. So if I actually were to try to do that, I know I'd have a near-death experience. This was my thinking as a teenager. I'm glad I never kind of ran the gauntlet on that, but that's how strong my conviction was that it wasn't my time. If I tried to do it, I'd just be bounced back straight back into the realm kind of thing.
Yeah, and that can be the case as well. I think we have times in our lives where we have sliding doors. And that's how I think it's been in my life, that you could cross the road and get hit by the car, or you could cross the road, make it to the other side, or you might get hit by the car, but you survive. So, sometimes there's these little times where we could go or we might not. And I do numerology as well, and I look at a lot of the time of the different cycles that we're in. And sometimes there are cycles when we could have that exit point, but it could be, it's sometimes, I think it's a soul's decision whether we leave or not necessarily our body's decision. So I think we can have those little moments in time where we could leave or we might, or we might not. I think I know for myself and one of my children, when he's had 2 anesthetics now, and I know when I have anesthetic, I have to warn the doctors because things always happen. And my son had 2 knee operations, and then he was always very spiritual, and I was pregnant with him. So I had a miscarriage before him. So I had my oldest son. Then he was 2 and I had a miscarriage, and then I had my next son. And I was pregnant with him when the psychic stuff really just took right off. So after the miscarriage, it sort of blew right open, and I only saw murders. And that's when I started working
my
on
gosh.
backpack murders. So my son, he experienced all of the things I was experiencing in utero, and he's the most psychic of all my children.
Wow. God, there's so much in this, because you've got this coming in this way that is so intense, right? Some people have their spiritual gifts coming online in ways that are a bit more delightful, but
Yes.
and I feel like I've had that. Like, I haven't had any extreme things, or extreme, yes, but not anything like that. And then to also be a mum and to be focusing on growing a baby in you, like, that's a lot to have to process and to manage. How did you do that?
Yeah, it was a really difficult time because my husband was getting angry with me. He thought I was going crazy because, I was terrified to go to sleep, because every time I go to sleep, I would see another part of the backpacker murders. I would become a victim. I would be the murderer. I would be made to watch. So I was watching TV, or actually being there and him being aware of what I was seeing. So that was really frightening. And at first I just thought I was watching too much television. And back then the internet wasn't what it is now. We don't even, I think mobile phones were just coming in. They weren't like they are now. So, the news was just on all the radio and the news. And I was actually working at Fairfax community newspapers at the time that this was all taking place as well, because I was the graphic designer. And so I've always worked in sort of the media type areas, in the background. But it was a really interesting experience. And when I ended up speaking to a friend of mine, and we went, the whole group of us, all of the couples from the baseball team, we all went down to Barrel, and we stayed in Barrel. And that was right in the middle of all the backpacker stuff. And I was just beside myself. I was seeing all these things, and it was a lot going on. And when I came back, a lot more was happening. And this friend of mine, one of her close friends, was a police officer, and I was telling her what I was seeing, and she said, I'll put you in touch with my girlfriend. So I spoke to her girlfriend, and then her girlfriend's husband was part of Task Force Air. So then she put me in contact with him, and then it went from there. And so then I ended up speaking with the police, and that was a really challenging experience to start with, because they were saying, are you a psychic? It's like, no, I'm not. Then what are you ringing us for? And then I ended up keeping a diary for them, but they asked me, did I have mental health issues? They wanted to know all my doctors. They wanted to know where I was at certain times, because some of the things as it went on, I knew things before they did.
Wow.
And so then they thought, was I a witness or was I involved?
Yeah, because how could you possibly know these things?
Yeah, I just thought once I sort of spoke to them, it'd go away and that'd be it. I'd just go back to normal, whatever normal is. Yeah, so that was really hard. And while I was working at the newspaper, I told one of the journalists, and then things started to come to light before it was on the telly. So he said, right, we're going to do a story about you, and we're going to call you Julia. And he said, I want you to pick the demographic of where you want the newspaper to go. So I had about 30 different areas where the demographic for the newspaper would be, and I picked the MacArthur Advertiser. That one just jumped out at me. So the story went to press, and then this woman rang up the paper and wanted to speak with me. and it ended up being Ivan Milat's girlfriend, Shalinda Hughes.
My God, my whole back is just going crazy as soon as you started mentioning all this stuff. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that is just phenomenal. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And did you feel like you wanted to shut it down, or did you? I mean, you just said, I felt like if I just kind of said it all and did my piece in it, like it's like you had to me, when I hear you speak, it sounds like you felt like there was this responsibility that you had to bring forth that information.
But I felt that I must have been given it for a reason. I wasn't very impressed that I was given the information, because it's actually, over the years through working on the cases, it's put my life in danger, and I've always worried about my families as well. You know, I've had people come after me, had death threats, had hooded men wait for me in the car park of where I used to work.
Oh my gosh.
They've broken into my office. I've had a lot of things happen.
That's just, and for people who question psychic mediumship, you know, and they think that it's all charlatan things, I just think, you know what, why would someone put themselves through all of this, expose your family? Like, it's this overriding kind of mission, calling, or whatever you call it, that responsibility that, you know, it's so rare of how many people can do the work that you do, but then to do it also in that space beyond working with loved ones, but actually it's like got this huge kind of justice, community service aspect to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And all of the work that I have done with the police is always pro bono. So that's, you know, it's not like I'm getting anything out of it. Not that I would like to think I'm making money off helping. It's more for me, I think, how would it be if it was someone I knew, or if it was my
that
family
was your
member?
daughter. Yeah.
Yeah, I would want to help.
Sorry, that's just also massive, because I'm thinking of you as a young mum. So this was when you're pregnant, isn't it, with your second one? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So that's already so much, and your time is so precious. And then to do all of that as well, like, do you look back now and just think, how did I do it? Do you feel like there's something definitely in the work that we do? And I know I'm not working at the level you are, but it's like there is just spirit just supporting us, because it's the things that can be done sometimes do feel like if we were just relying on our human strength, it's not possible.
Exactly. And I think it's hard too, because there are lots of male mediums, but there's a lot more in psychics as well. But it tends to be more females tend to sort of work a lot more in this type of space, because it's part of our nurturing, and especially with family, and we can relate to that. You know, we relate how other people feel with their children or their loved ones. Not that males don't. There's lots of wonderful male mediums out there, but they sort of tend to work in a different kind of way. But I think when it comes to the police side of it, they probably would take males more seriously than females. Sometimes it's a bit like, oh, you're being a bit hormonal. It's like, well, no, not really.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of insulting.
Yeah, and it's when it becomes verifiable like that. Like, it's just, and it'd be interesting to see like the responses from police as you were giving information and it was confirming things, or you were ahead of them, and just to see their responses would have been really fascinating.
Yeah, I've worked with some absolutely amazing police officers over the years, and I've also had some very challenging ones, and I've had some very, very challenging experiences through some of the cases that I've worked on. It does make me question whether I even want to do it anymore, because of the threats I've had. I think in some of the police officers that I've met have been total skeptics to start with. I remember there's this amazing team that I used to work with the dog squad, and they were both very skeptical. But the older gentleman, his name's Roger Mayer, and I'm sure he won't mind if I mention his name. And we went to do a search down in Wollongong, and he sort of said that they didn't sort of tell him what it was. They said I was a witness. So I'd worked with these two other officers prior on the Maria Scott case, and so they had called me in to work on, it was Tony Marie Kavanagh and Kay Doherty case. And I tuned into some items, and then I had some landscape that I had seen, and so we went down there to sort of do a search. And so we're just sitting at this bench, and I sort of met them at lunchtime. So they're having lunch, And Ron just says to me, so what are you here for? What do you do? And I said, oh, I've got a bit of an unusual job. And then the other officer that sort of brought me in, she sort of looked at me, we both looked and sort of had this sort of smile and went, oh God, how are we going to do this? And then I just said, oh, I'm a psychic medium. And he said, oh my God, really? I don't believe in that, you know, beep, beep. And it was really funny. And he just said, oh God, here I am, I'm wasting my time. And anyway, we went out, we did do the search. Unfortunately, we didn't find the missing girl's remains, but there was this point where I went into this bush area, and it was like I became one of the victims, and I felt myself running. I was just running. It was really weird, a massive burst of energy. It was a really hot, still day, and then this it was like a willy-willy of energy came around me, and all of the leaves and everything were all blowing up around, and I got really disorientated, which has never happened before. And I tried to get my way back out, and it was just strange. I've never experienced it. Anyway, he came in to be with me to try and, he said, what's going on? What are you doing? And the same thing happened to him. And we both got in energy field. It was really crazy. I did find out some years later that they had found a woman had been murdered by her husband, and she'd been hung by a tree near where that was. So it wasn't the victims we were looking at, but there was somebody else who had been found there. But even after that, he just said to me, oh, I'm a true believer. And all these kids, I've met a few of his kids online, and they've got my books, and he sort of starts laughing about it now because he said it changed his life. So it was really...
Oh, it's interesting because I think while it's theory for people, it's healthy to have some level of skepticism. But when you have like an embodied experience like that, like what he had, it's undeniable. Yeah. You can't explain it any other way than there's something else going on. Do you understand that to be like the energetic imprints that you're picking up on from those events that have occurred at that time?
Yes, definitely. I call it psychometry. So there's location psychometry, but then we also have psychometry. It's also I'm trying to feel. I've just forgotten now. It's one of the other. It's also called clairtangency. So when we touch things, we pick things up. But areas will be imprinted if you might go to an historical site and there was a battle. Like I've recently gone to the UK and I went to Culloden to the battlefields, and I could hear them. I could see them, and you could hear them screaming. You could hear them shouting commands, and it was really interesting because it was a still day, and then this wind came up. My daughter and I both could hear the voices.
Really?
A lot of unmarked graves in that location would be very much like Anzac Cove, and you could just hear everything. We just stood there crying because we could just feel the emotion from the location. But there's other places that you go and it's a really happy place, so you'll pick up happiness as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. Yeah.
Gosh, I hope so for you, because I feel like you're definitely doing so much work in that space that you deserve some more of the joy and some more of the happiness as well to be exposed to that. So in terms of your spiritual gifts, for people who are new to this space, so there's the psychic gifts you've got and also the mediumship gifts. And my understanding is that not everyone who is a psychic will be a medium potentially, but you've got both of those. Are you able to kind of explain to people, what the differences are with that?
Being a psychic, you can know the past, present, or the future. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's different forms of being psychic. So we have 8 psychic clairs.
Yes.
So we have clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. It's clear seeing can be signs and symbols that you get. It can be through dreams or daydreams or like little visions, that you might get.
It's massive for me. It's so big at the moment. It's just gone. I don't know if you're experiencing, but the dream space, it's just like with the frequency of this realm right now, I just can't even. There's not even a transition now. Like it used to be that I would sleep, I'd dream, I'd remember my dreams, and I'd wake up, but I'd feel myself kind of waking and coming back into this life. But now it's like I'm fully in that dream, experiencing that thing, and then suddenly I'm here. Like, I don't know. Have you noticed that transition is just...
I've been like that for quite a while, but sometimes it would be nice just for them to let you have a night's sleep and just think, feeling refreshed, not thinking, I still get a lot of murders. I can become a victim and be chased. And
oh my gosh. And do you have any control over that? Like, I sometimes will say to my spirit team, all right, I'm tapping out tonight. Like, I'm not going to go and do all these other things in different dimensions and have all these experiences. Like, just let me just be leash and just have a really good sleep in my body and just leave me alone tonight. And I feel like that is honored, or if I think to do it. Can you have those kind of boundaries?
No, not really. They're
No.
pretty busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm too open. I do protect myself before I go to sleep and things, but I just think my mind's pretty busy. I think, oh, Debbie's asleep now. Let's do some other work with her.
Yeah, the mind doesn't rest, does it? Like, it doesn't need to. Like, so. Yeah.
No, and it depends where you've been. Like, I've recently got back from the UK and I did went to a lot of sacred locations. I went to lots of sacred stone circles, and I keep dreaming about the place since I've come back. I went to the top of Scotland, went to Stornoway in the Isle of Lewis, and I touched a lot of stone circles when I went through the UK. I went to over probably 13 different locations in the time I had.
Wow.
And I certainly felt a lot of things. And we went to some sacred sites as well. So that's been really quite in my mind since I've come back. It's almost like I yearn to go back there. Like I've got unfinished business. Yeah, years ago, if someone said to me, "Oh, you're going to go to England," I wouldn't have really cared if I went to England or not.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't that there was just some call in Scotland. I never thought I'd go to Scotland, and I didn't even expect to be going. It's just two of my kids were travelling overseas, and they said, "Why don't you come and meet us over there?" And so I went to the Arthur Findlay College for a week, and then met up with them, and then travelled around with them from there. Yeah, there's certain different energies I know when I touched the stones, and it was a bit like Outlander. I felt different stones had different frequencies and different vibrations, and some of them, if I could feel myself being sucked into the stone. Physically, I wasn't going to be going in there like Claire from Outlander. And I
haven't seen Outlander, but maybe I should.
Oh, you need to see Outlander, yes. But I could certainly feel different energies. Some of the locations were quite tribal and quite violent, or warlike. Then there was other family areas at some of them, Avebury especially, and I only had an hour there, which was really disappointing. But it was just on the way back, and I touched a number of the stones, and they were giving me different languages and different signs and symbols. So some were pulling me into it. Some of the energy was radiating out like a half circle around me. Some were squiggles. There was all different things, and some of them were male energy or female energy or child energy, and some were more family orientated. So that was interesting. But I feel Australia, we still have lots of locations here, like Uluru, for me, masculine. But then when you go to Katajuda, that's very much the sacred feminine and goddess kind of energy. When I touched,
what's Katajuda?
Well, it used to be called the Olgas, but now it's called Katajuda. So, yeah, so the energy there is much more female energy to me. There's Cradle Mountain, there's other things that I've felt when I've been in Cradle Mountain, and there's just certain sacred places that you might go to and you just feel that energy.
It's amazing. I had that experience in India, definitely. And there was one bowl that I touched in a temple that was, whoa, oh my God. Are there times, though, that you have on your journey wanted to call the show off? I mean, you just even said now with the police work that there are times because of the risks that it's taken for you. Are there times in your journey where you've gone, okay, I just want to be Debbie. I've got to, I mean, you're a mum with 3 kids. That's already a full-time job, right? And then to have to mix this in, like, has that been something? And I guess I asked that from me personally, as well as me being a mum and trying to do, I do work in the kind of mainstream space and also in this space as well. But are there times that you just go, you know what, I know I've got this responsibility and I know I choose to do this mission, but I just want to like hand it all back and just live like a normal human life?
Well, I tried doing that and it didn't really work because they wouldn't stop. So they've chosen me to do this. But yeah,
do you think they've chosen you or you chose it?
Yeah, well, I wonder. I was very reluctant. I did everything to stop it and make it go away. And back when all of this started, there weren't the books that there are now. There wasn't information out there. It was classed as the occult. And I remember trying to get some assistance when I was pregnant with my second son. and I went to yoga classes for meditation, and I kept seeing all these different things there. And then went to some crystal shops, and they were sort of thinking I was some scary lady because I was picking up dead, murders and things.
Yeah.
And I think now for me, there's so many more people awakening, and I couldn't find the books I wanted or the information I wanted. So I think I had to learn a lot of things myself. I did have a beautiful lady that I met. She's still alive. She's wonderful. Her name is Patricia McRae, and she's head of the Spiritualist Church at Caringbah. But I was invited to join a learning circle not far from where I lived, and I used to go there. That's where I sort of learned psychometry. But I went there to shut it down, not to open it up, and then that was not the case. But I think for me, it's about helping others now, because there are a lot of people that are opening up. They don't know what to do, and there's a lot going on with people. With the witchcraft side of things is becoming more predominant now. And yes, there's good and bad in spirit, there's good and bad in life. And when people are, sort of dabbling more in the Wicca, in those kinds of spaces, it's still about ceremonies and things. But then, there's also negative energies that are around us. Like, just because we die, we don't get a set of wings and all become angels, and there are negative spirits as well as negative people in life. So I think learning not to, I just worry about people dabbling, they dabble with Ouija boards and, they start doing rituals, but they don't know the consequences of their actions, and opening up portals that they can't shut.
Do you think when you say there's good and bad in spirit and good and bad here, do you think that at the true level in spirit there is, or is it more that they have lost touch with the truth of their essence? Or because because I haven't, I guess, had the full breadth of experiences that you've had, and my only connection with spirit I haven't had anything that has been of anything negative. So it just feels like everything's like beautiful there. But
no, from my experience, no. I did a TV show many years ago called Screen Test, and they got 30 people from around Australia, and then they whittled it down. And we had to go to haunted locations in Australia. And so the location, so there was 4 of us that went to each location, and then once you got through that night, and then it ended up there was a final, so the final 4 had to go through and see who made it through the night. So I hate the dark, and working in the psychic detective space, I ended up with Maitland Jail. So they took us up in a filming van, and then they sat us for an hour or so with a black bag on our head, and we didn't know where we were going, took our watches and things off us. This was 1999.
Oh my gosh.
And then they took us out, and then they put us in different cells, put us in pitch black. We were given a camera, like a video camera, an EMF tester and a temperature gauge, and we were told we were only allowed to film, only allowed to have the light on and the camera before filming. They locked us in the cell, played a video of all the most dreadful things that happened in each cell. Then you were left in pitch black to your own devices.
Oh my God.
And I got physically attacked in that jail. I came out with strangulation marks on my neck that were there for over 18 months.
Oh my
and
God.
anytime I do any psychic work, my neck would just have these big hand marks on it. I had an attachment that wouldn't leave me alone. There were points when I was in the jail, I got scratched in my face. I was pushed, I was thrown. When we came back after the night of filming, I had this thing get into bed with me and try and attack me. And it was horrific. I could hear them. There was one area we had to do a sound recording, and they were urinating on me. I could hear it through the headphones. I felt like I could feel them urinating on me, but I was touching myself thinking, oh my God, it's all running down my arms, but it wasn't physically happening. But the impression and hatred in that jail was so strong that I could feel all of that psychometry energy. So for me, and I have been attacked before. I've done filming in haunted locations like Rosehill Mental Hospital. I've had things happen there, because I'm the skeptic. If I can see dead people, why can't you? So I wanted to photograph them and film them to prove there's something there.
Yeah.
I put myself in these positions.
Gosh, that just sounds so extreme, and I just think you're like so tough. I just think how and I guess to do the work you do, there must be just such a sturdiness within you to be able to withstand. I think most humans would be like not be able to continue to do that work when you're getting the strength of that energetic imprints, kind of really feeling in that full form of manifestation of physical contact with you. Yeah, I can't imagine that I'd be able to cope with that, which is probably why the work I do, they're like, you can't cope with that work, Leash. So we'll let you just play in the nice, sweet spaces.
Yes. Yeah, so that's why I worry when people, are playing around with different, experiments. I can understand people are experimenting, but sometimes people want to conjure something up, and they want proof and they want negative stuff around them, and then they get upset because they've got an attachment. There's the light's always much brighter than the darkness, but I think it's always just protect yourself, and it's about being on the right frequency or vibration and aspiring to the good and to the light. And I think once you lift your frequency or your vibration, then you are on a higher level, and then the negatives can't reach you. You may be aware of them, but they're not going to control you. And I've seen a lot of things happen when, say, somebody has addictions, and either drugs or alcohol, and sometimes then they will have people in spirit who are addicts prior, and they don't get a hit anymore, so they will attach to somebody who has that addiction, because that's how they get their hit, because they don't have a human physical body anymore. So I think we just need to be mindful, but it's not all doom and gloom and horrible. I think the other side for me, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, tell us the good stuff. So
yeah, well, there's so many beautiful things, and I work with spirit guides and guardian angels, and to be honest, if I didn't listen to them, I would be dead, because I've had warnings when people have come after me. And sometimes things happen. I think that our guides and angels are there with us, but sometimes you get warnings and you think, oh yeah, I'm okay. You think you're 10 foot tall proof, or you just, I'm not someone who likes to be told what to do. And when I first discovered my spirit team, they would be saying, oh, you shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that, and I was still not convinced that these invisible beings.
How did you first discover them? I know you've got a number of guides, but one particular guide you've spoken about, your spirit guide Running Horse. How did you first, because I know that was very special for me when I kind of had my introduction and my connection with each of the different guides in my team. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Running Horse, he sort of appeared, he kept saying, hello, my child, and I'm like, around thinking, what the heck's going on here? Where's this person coming from? And he was with me very early on, and then I haven't had him around me for years, except when I went to the Arthur Findlay College, when we were sort of doing exercises, and one of the girls saw him beside me, and I, because I've been doing this over 30 years now, and I haven't had him around me a lot, for quite some time, but it was funny, he made a reappearance, which I thought was interesting. I'm not really into American Indians. It's not sort of one of my, sometimes you're kind of drawn to an area of different things. And he would come and protect me, but I tend to work more with, have a lot of angels around me. I write angel cards and make angel jewelry and sort of channel them. So I feel it's more, my angels are there. I do get disappointed though, because people say to me, what do they look like? I don't always know what they look like. I feel them. They're usually behind me. And they don't always give me names, and that makes me cross. Mind you, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is one that I've had around me a lot. And when I went to the Arthur Findlay College, he appeared again, because he told me to take some photographs at an exhibition many years ago, and he came up on my camera, because there was actual photographs of him.
Yes. Have you asked your guides? Because I'm the same, because I mean, mine speak through me. They use my voice to talk, and they kind of they animate me, right, and channel through me. But then I do also hear them talking to me. But there've been a number of times where I'm like, come on, just show me. Like, I want to see you. Just appear. Like, why can't you just appear in form? And I will often talk to myself in the mirror when they're coming through, and my face morphs a little bit, and I can get a sense of what they look like. But yeah, I'm like, come on, if you're that good, guides, just manifest and show your face. But that's yet to have happened for me.
Yeah, it's hard. I know when I was doing some early experiments, I was taking photographs of myself in the mirror, because they told me that's how they would appear. Because many years ago, people used to use mirrors as the portal, so they used a psychomantium, so that would be kind of like a different version of a crystal ball. And I would take photographs in the mirror, and this face would always appear, but it would appear in different parts of the mirror, but it would be side side on profile, face on profile. So maybe experiment a little bit with that. Yeah, it's hard when they do that because they're there. I know I channel as well, and it's like I feel them. It's almost like you feel them stepping in. But
That's
it's interesting how when you can feel them, and it's like, yeah, I want you to be in front of me. And before I went overseas this year, I kept having these visions. I'd do meditations, and I kept seeing these hooded beings in purple cloaks.
Right.
Just kept seeing everywhere I went, and it was like, wow, what is this? And then when I went overseas, and especially at some of the stone circles, I was seeing these purple beings quite significantly. And then in the end, I got really frustrated and just said, look, what are you? Who are you? I want to know what this is all about, because I'm sick of seeing these kind of creepy looking things with purple cloaks, because I could never see their face.
Yeah.
And then and I have a lot of experiences with sort of ET sort of energies as well.
Yeah.
When I saw this woman, she sort of pulled her cloak down and she had the most brilliant blue eyes. She looked very Nordic, and she had very white hair, very fine high cheekbones, and she just sort of looked at me, and it was more like a mental telepathy, and she said, well, this is part of your journey. And I understood then. And then a lot of the times when I would go to the stones, I would see the purple beings, but I felt they were more feminine. It was sort of feminine goddess kind of energy. Especially when we went to the tour in Glastonbury, there was a lot of energy there. And my favourite place would have to be Tintagel. There's a place called St Nectan's Glen, and it's very fairy like and very ethereal.
I love fairies and angels, and it was actually affirming, because you don't know me, but when we had the reading, kind of the first thing, you won't remember necessarily, but the first thing you were like, oh, I can see you're working with the angels. Like, it was like you could pick that up straight away, and I was like, oh, okay, good. Like, even though I know it, but it's always just still good to hear those things. So are there any like really, because even though there's still that skeptic in both of us, I think, where we're still like, okay, show us the next thing, or is there like a really memorable reading where you've done a reading with someone, like it's just so undeniable? I mean, there'll be hundreds of them. Is there anything where you can just think, like, how could that not be the case, that you are actually bringing forth that information?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. Yeah, there's so many, I think.
And you mightn't even be able to, because it might be hard to share one without it, revealing someone. So if you can't, that's okay as well.
Oh, there's one that's been probably more recent. Over the last few years, I've had contact with this person, and this soldier came through, and the soldier, there was all these messages about the soldier, and then we've sort of worked together a few times, and he was a family member I actually never met, and he died in the First World War, and we've been able to even find where he was killed, because he died in France, and he was part of the artillery, and all of the different things that he sort of shared about the family. And it was, now that this person's done all this research, it's all true, and it looks like where we thought his remains, because his remains should be, she's actually going to go on a journey to go and hopefully go there next year.
Wow.
So it's wonderful when you get those things. But I think one of the weirdest things would have to be for me, talking about my son, who, the one that I was pregnant with when all this was going on. Ever since he was born, he used to always talk about these men in his room, about the men with the arms and legs missing, and they had nails in their head. And he used to always talk about them, and he always wanted to wear army clothes. So I'd always have to buy anything with camouflage on it. I used to make him pajamas and things, because that's all he would wear. And it kind of stopped when he got to 21, and I was writing one of my books, Always With You, and it was Anzac Day, and every Anzac Day we would have to go, because we had to honour them. And when I'm naughty when I write, so sometimes I will actually procrastinate and go on Google and look at things. And anyway, it was ancestry.com was open for the day, but only the First World War, not Second World War. And my son had always said to me he was going to be a gunner, and he was going to be a tradie, and he was going to do all these things. And then when I was looking up my grandfather, who was Bernard Ernest G, this other man kept coming up, Walter Ernest G, and he was in the First World War, and he was jumping off the screen at me. And my grandfather, because he was Second World War, it wasn't free for him on that particular day. It was only for First World War. And my son was always talking about this man. And anyway, I clicked on this name because it kept bouncing at me. And the man was born exactly 100 years prior to my son's birthday. So he was born on his birthday.
Right.
And he was a gunner and he was a tradie. So it was kind of weird. All of these things that were happening were actually part of my family. And this man, I believe, was my son in another life. And he died in 1968. I was born in 63. But the further I went into it, and my son, all the things he used to talk to me about, you know, being on the battlefield and things, we ended up finding out that the man's buried in an unmarked grave near where my office was at Sutherland in Warrenora Cemetery.
My God.
And like out of all the soldiers in the entire world, there's this man there. And I found some of his family, but there's no headstones. It was one part of the family, I think it was his sister's side, found that. But my son and I went up with divining rods, and we were actually, that's how we sort of located where the remains, well, they were scattered on ground. So we think he was scattered with his wife. But it was really crazy because I was sort of doing this reading with my son and holding his hand and kind of channeling what we were seeing. And then we ended up, it all backed up. Then he went under hypnosis, and he was him on the battlefield. And that's why he always had to honour them. And once that happened, he didn't have to go to Anzac Day anymore. And he didn't, that whole part of his life shut down.
So interesting, past life connections when, just bringing the awareness of it just does all this healing. It's so hard. There's so many mysteries in terms of past lives, but once people start, if you're interested in it, because I definitely was, and I am, and did a lot of research, and there are just hundreds and thousands of cases that are just it's undeniable, the evidence of what these kids know and remember and can verify villages that they lived in, languages they could now speak. Like it's so fascinating.
Oh, definitely. And I think spirit will come to you through readings to give you this information. And sometimes you were never aware of it, but then they find you don't necessarily, well, you can find them after they've come to you. But I see this happening a lot when I do readings, like even with people who have had cancers and had, you know, body parts removed, and then they will come through to me and show me things, or I will feel it. So, and sometimes readings, they're tragic, but they're funny at the same time.
Yeah, well, you know, spirit is hilarious, though.
They are
hilarious. Just the sense of humor and the playfulness is just, and that's often the messages I'm getting is everyone humans, hey, just calm down, have some more fun, enjoy you're just here on a holiday in a human body. So enjoy it.
And I think too, it's fun to see their personalities, the way they will come through. And if someone's a bit cheeky and naughty before they die, they certainly stay that same way on the other side. I've done readings with people, and you know, their father was Scottish, and yes, he did show me what was under his kilt, and he didn't have any undies on. You know, I've had things like that. Or I had a lady who had a double mastectomy, and she sort of her friend came in, she sat beside her, and this woman in spirit was sitting there with a blue and white striped t-shirt, pair of jeans. And then I said, oh, your girlfriend's here, and, you know, I feel like she passed with cancer. And I said, she's, you know, has breast cancer. And then she just got a top and ripped a top up and just showed me she had her boobs back. And I said, did your friend have a double mastectomy? And she said, yeah. And I started laughing, and she's looking at me going, that's not very nice. Why are you laughing? And I said, if you saw what I'm seeing, you would be laughing. And I told her, and her girlfriend's like wobbling them at me going, look at them, they're pretty perky now. And then her friend burst into laughter, and she said, oh, thank goodness, because she said that was such a harrowing experience for her to go through, and she still passed. So, you know, they do want to show us that they're healed and that they come through, you know, happy again. But make sure when you send them to the other side, make sure you put their shoes and socks on for them, because sometimes they get upset. Or don't send them just draped in a sheet, as one lady did to her husband, because he just stood there in front of me holding the sheet to the side, telling me that everyone's laughing at him because he didn't have any clothing on. And and she said, well, she remembered him between the sheets, and that was their romantic time. So, you know.
Oh, my gosh. That's so fascinating, because my understanding is that, you know, they can kind of manifest themselves however they want and appear and change. Like it's like a game where they can like just change clothing and do all of this. But that's interesting, the fact that what you're sharing, that as they are passing over, how they've been dressed is maybe how they may come and appear as they're passing over for their party. I don't know if I've had a lot of connections where they're like, okay, we've got to have the party now, like we're having the party because this one's back, like she's come back. And the symbols are really interesting. Like, it was my birthday yesterday, Debbie, and just as I woke up, the first image that was popped into my head was my nan showing me what she had she'd made me for my wedding. She had got made like this lingerie kind of dressing, I don't know what you call it, a slip. She'd had it made for me when I for my wedding night, my nan. And as I was waking yesterday morning, like she popped that image in my head, which like I haven't thought of since 2005 is when it happened. It's just like her way of being, she was like, I'm the first one to say happy birthday to you. You know, it's just,
like,
yeah, they're just so cute and so playful. We're kind of in our last kind of 5 minutes or so. Are there any rituals or routines that you incorporate into your work in terms of managing your energy and protecting your energy, or anything that, I know again people can read your book, but any guidance around that for humans, people who are doing this work or not? Because at the end of the day, whether we're actively doing this work, everyone is doing this spiritual work, because we are all spiritual beings. I mean, psychometry, is that how you say it, when you hold an image?
Yes.
Yes.
Psychometry is when you hold a piece of jewelry. So from holding a piece of jewelry, it can be like watching television.
Yes,
so it's almost
but everyone can do it. Like,
yes,
I've been blown away, maybe not, but I think everyone's got the capacity. But yeah, I went to a Brian Weiss seminar thing, and we just all paired up, and it was just phenomenal. The amount of accuracy. It's just,
I think it's just trusting, because sometimes you get things and you think, is it my imagination?
yes.
Is it wishful thinking, or and then I think too, when you panic, you can shut yourself down. I know when I'm stressed, I have to relax myself. So I tend to like to do some deep breathing, usually count from 10 down to 1, and then I sort of calm myself. Yeah, it is hard. I know when I did the one years ago, we would be sort of thrown into doing all of these exercises and things, or challenges. And some of the people sort of had a ploy that they would pick arguments with people before they were about to go on camera, because they knew that it would put you off.
Oh.
Me being one of those people. And so I would be shutting down, because I would like to be away from everybody and just sit and meditate, or sort of calm myself and just go and do what I do. The other thing is, I'm not a very competitive person when it comes to this realm, because I think we're all psychic. We should be all helping each other.
Yeah.
And it's about making a difference. And the more we become in touch with our spiritual bodies and spiritual being, the better the world's going to be. But it is hard with the rituals. I think you have to do what feels right for you. I've always been a really busy person. I remember when I first started this, people used to say to me, oh, you should be meditating for an hour. I'd be like, yeah, I'm flat out with doing that with 3 kids running around, and you're meditating, they'd be there fighting, and or doing something. For me, I always have a shower every morning and every night, because when I'm in the shower, that's my white light, and I sort of on and sort of put that protection on. I do like to go and walk around out in nature, or go for a walk outside. The water for me is a great conductor, but the last few years my health hasn't been as good as it could be. So I normally would be paddleboarding and sort of doing things like that, or just even getting out in the garden. For me, I love the night sky. I do night photography. I just love it, because for me, when I've died, that's where I've gone up.
Right.
And it's been amazing. The movie Contact, for me.
That was
has to be.
For me too.
That's what I saw when I died. I had a major near-death experience in 1995, and my daughter was only 1, and I knew I was going to die, and I told the doctors I'd have this major operation, and it ended up I was allergic to morphine, and I didn't know it, but I got a will made the night before, because I was told I was going to die. And I told the doctors beforehand, and they didn't believe me, and they just said, I'm being a bit hormonal. It's like this thing with this hormonal thing. It's like, no. I said, I'm a psychic. And they go, yeah, whatever. They said, oh, you're going to hang around and watch. And I said, just make sure you put me back together, okay. But after I came back, I was on the morphine drip, and then I did have these horrific experiences, and then I did go. And, it gave me
when you say Contact, was it like because for Contact, it was really affirming for me, because I'd had some kind of astral traveling, going through portal, wormhole experiences in my late teens, studying late at night kind of thing. And I remember watching Contact. I was like, oh yeah, like that's like, it gives you like a narrative for it.
That was exactly what happened, because when I when I was passing, I was going through the wormholes, and that's why I love the night sky. I was like an astronaut with no craft. I was just there looking at all of the planets in the universe and the stars, and that floating feeling, and then being pulled through, you know, wormholes, and then the calmness, then the rushing, like being on a roller coaster, and then the calmness again, and then even going to other places. I've seen other things and gone to other locations, you know, other planets, I suppose. And I know when I was really drawn after that, I had to go to see the auroras. I went to see the Northern Lights up in Norway. And when I went there, that was just like heaven coming down. And I was so lucky to get the experience that one part of the aurora, when it was above me, turned into angel wings, and it more or less wrapped above us. We did it. It was on a ship that we did it on. And it was just so phenomenal. My husband would be asleep every night. He'd go, "What are you standing out there? It's minus 10 degrees, and it's freezing, and there's snow out there on the deck and slippery." And there's me just looking up and going, "Oh my God, heaven!" I had all of these things happening. But for me, spirit will show itself in many ways. But I think it's a lot of the time it'll show when you're quiet and you're still, and it's not always when other people are there. They are there, but not everybody will see it. So I think it's part of, just being calm. Sometimes it's more a feeling or a knowing. In the signs and the symbols, as you said, I've written a deck called Psychic Symbols, and I wrote that because when I started to work with my spirit team, it was about the different signs they gave to me. And the signs I get might not be how they work with you. Your spirit team might give you things in a different sense as well. But I find that it's like a psychic encyclopedia. They start to give you repetitive images, and then that image relates to how that feeling is or that knowing is.
Yeah.
Which is something that's important for journaling. So you're writing it down so you get to understand the language they are sharing with you.
It's so cool. It's just so clever. And I mean, I'm so excited. I don't want to die yet because I know I've got like a lot of life here and lots of more fun and play. But equally, like that kind of yearning and longing to go home is definitely like in me.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I know when some of the things that I see, and it's just incredible. And you wish that you could show somebody through your eyes what it looks like. And I think, seeing Contact was one way for me to actually sort of think, okay, somebody gets it. But it's interesting, the lady who did that, the movie's based on, I looked her up and I thought, gosh, I would really love to meet her. And she is agnostic. She doesn't believe there's anything. And it was interesting watching her interview on YouTube about, no, I don't believe there's anything after death. And I was like, wow, but this movie's based on you. Surely there's something. And I just wonder, because that
amazing.
Just touched my soul.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance I think that humans can still have, where it's like, nope, I can't accept that. Like that, it's like I can't put my mind to that, and that continues, I think, in a lot of different forms with humans, even when there's information right in front of people's faces. Like, no, I'm not going to open my eyes to that. I'm not going to see that. So in wrapping up, is there anything you haven't had a chance to share? Anything else that you wanted to say, or what's next for you? Like, I know you've written lots of books, and you're really, feels like for me, it's like really that legacy piece of teaching and training the kind of the next generation is really a big part of what you're doing as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to do more of that. I would like to do more retreats and sort of take people to some of the sacred locations. I've got
me too.
Decks. Yeah, I'd like to really return to the UK. I don't know why. There's just this yearning to go back, but I think but even here, I'd like to do some things here in Australia because there's so many beautiful places here. I think it's teaching people not to be frightened. We're all born psychic. It's like we've got our own, spiritual GPS that's there, and we just need to tune into it. But it's also, patience is the dirtiest spiritual word I know. It's like the F word, because we don't want to be patient. I remember I used to take the patient card out of all of my decks because I was like, I've already got that one. I don't need that again. Like, get rid of it. I'm already patient. But I think what it is, they'll only give you as much as you can handle. So you think about it, the Olympians, they might swim every day, but they have to practice and exercise more and more to get faster or more proficient. It's the same as with our psychic abilities. We're all born psychic. I think it's, trusting and understanding and working with your team, but also practice, practice, practice. And
Yeah.
practice, come in different forms. You don't have to be, like I was saying before, and I'm sorry, I do digress sometimes. And we were talking about the psychic clairs, because there's so many of them, and they actually coincide with our real, 5 senses. So clairtendency, which is psychometry, we talked about, was touching, psychic touch. Then there's clairvoyance, which is seeing, and then, sort of having visions. Clairaudience is clear hearing. And a lot of people are getting tinnitus, or tinnitus, some people call it. And a lot of people since COVID have actually developed that even more so. Seems that is also, that can be the primer for spirit to come to you clairaudiently. When we talk about that, because clairaudience is one of the harder ones of all of them, because when you look up hearing voices, I mean, in a book it'll say you've got mental health issues.
I've got multiple personality disorder, I'm sure, and all sorts of things if I were to go into the
if you went to look at
DSM-4 or whatever it is.
And see, isn't it? It's crazy when we look at that, but pay attention to when you hear things, because sometimes when you hear things, it'll come through a song. So you might just get one
song words. They definitely
message.
use that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, even putting things on the radio, or your loved one's favourite song, when they're around, you'll hear it. Then, we've got clairsentience, which is clear feeling, and then clairempathy. So empathy is in the heart and sentience is in the tummy. But then we've got claircognizance, which is the light bulb moment that goes off. When we get a lot of that, it's sort of like, that's where you might get your channeling, or something might just pop into your head and think, wow, I didn't think about that. But then there's other ones that we don't really talk about, which is clairgustance, which is when we taste something, we actually... you might be, especially Christmas coming up, you might have that baked dinner and think, oh, that's grandma. I'm thinking your grandma tastes like her gravy. Or you might get a taste in your mouth and you're not eating the food and you get it. And then clairalience is a very common one, but we don't talk about that a lot. We get that smell. Like sometimes I'll do a reading and I might get cetyl hairspray when someone's grandma or nana walks into the room. And that's just hairspray, or it could be their perfume, or I might get smelly socks. Somebody's young son might have died in a car accident and he was a footy player and he's always had smelly socks. So it's not always nice smells, but we get things like that. So there's all these other
ways that they're talking to you. Are you sensitive? I'm just interested. I know I'm going to let you go, but we spoke about your allergy to anesthetics. I know for me, I have an issue with pethidine. When they've tried to give me pethidine, I'm like ultra sensitive to chemicals, perfumes, anything like that. Do you experience that?
Yes. The more psychic I've become, the more it's happened. I can't wear a lot of perfumes. I get migraines.
Yeah.
I've become more sensitive to food. There's not a lot of having a lot of issues at the moment. There's not a lot of foods that I can eat because they set me off. But it's weird, because I do feel we've become much more sensitive, even when it comes to music. There was certain music that I might have liked, and then frequency
like my teenage daughter, she keeps wanting to put this music on in the car, and it's like my whole body's like
exactly.
I can't deal.
It's interesting. Well, I didn't realize I have because I have a lot of migraines. I had to have some MRIs, and then when I've had the MRIs, I have an amazing time in there. I don't really like being in the tunnel, but I have synesthesia. So synesthesia is another part of the psychic forms. But when they're beaming all the different sounds through, I have these colour arrays that are going off. So I'm seeing each sound has a different colour. But then that'll also come across to music. So a lot of people have this stuff and they don't know. And it's when we talk about it, it's like, that happens to me. But, unless we talk about it and sort of make people more aware, we're not all crazy. I think we're all special spiritual beings, but we might pick up things in different manners. So, when you smell that smell and there's nothing there, think about what the smell is. Does it remind you of someone? When you hear that song and you think, oh, that was Pop's favourite song, or that was Dad's, or there's a line out of a song. Like I get a lot of messages through lines. So if I see somebody, especially say their grandmother's in spirit, a lot of times grandmas aren't always fond of their grandchildren living with someone before they're married. So I might hear Beyonce singing, if you want it, then you better put a ring on it. And they're always saying, you need that ring on your finger before, you sort of go to the next step. Or
it's so funny. It's so...
somebody... Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's just fun. Like I think that it's playful and it's interesting about all the different ways that they're all connecting. And as you say, there are so many people that don't even think they're psychic, don't think that they're having these things happen. But if they actually stop and stop all the distractions a little bit and tap into it, it's like everyone is having these every single day, like countless experiences. And I feel like at the moment, just with everything, just the connections, everything's speeding up, so to speak, of the frequency. It's just like the synchronicity is just like daily now. Boom, 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 boom. Just
Definitely.
yeah. And I'm really excited about where we're heading and what's happening with this mass awakening. Are you feeling that?
I do. I feel excited, but I also feel sad at the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. So when I say that, people who have that connection to spirit, and there's a lot that have not, and it's sad for them, but it makes me sad when I see what's happening around the world at the moment, which is something that really doesn't need to be happening. It's more a time of us respecting life and respecting each other.
Yeah, and when we
that's the hard part. But I just wish that spirit is coming closer because of a lot of these circumstances that are happening.
Yeah,
I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if the whole world meditated, at the same time for world peace? Wouldn't you think there would be some form of a change? But I just think it's hard because I feel that there's so many people. I think the more of us that awaken, the more of us that will think about the positives, and so then that can be the change that we need for the future for, humanity in a way.
Yeah, that's right. It's just everything. I mean, everything's create all of our thoughts of what we're kind of seeing out in the world, the wars, the everything, like it's from our collective thoughts that are creating all this. So then it's up for more of us. And I think particularly those who do have that awareness, like the more that we are oozing that stuff out and the more that more and more people are doing that, it's like the jar of juice or whatever it is. I don't know. It's just like just tipping the balance for that more and more. And I think everyone has got incredible power to be able to contribute to that.
I think too that we need to think about creating memories. Not everything has to be an item. It could be more, or it can be an item like when I think about when somebody passes, that the things that we take with us are the memories, but sometimes finding that handwritten letter from someone that can mean so much because their energy's in that, or their favorite song, or even just a photograph. I believe it's great to get in photos with your loved ones, because when they pass, first of all, they like it when you do a display at their funeral to show them,
photos are important, aren't they? And
they are.
My nan, actually, after she passed, this is bad actually, Nan, because I haven't even done this. How bad's this? But I don't think we did like a proper memorial card, like with her photo. And she kind of told me later she wanted that. And then we actually did mock something up, but I actually don't even know if I've done that. So I need to put that back. She's probably coming in going, yeah, actually, remember I actually came in and I told you I wanted that and you still hadn't done it. Okay, Nan.
Yeah, and they connect from the other side. So they will show you what they want. It could be maybe it's an anniversary or something that you can do it, or whether it's on a birthday, you can do that. I think the things that we do take with us, we can have a great house when we're here, but we can't take that with us, or the car. And most of the time when I see that people have passed, there's always family members that are all fighting over what's left. I call it grieving in greed. They start getting greedy, and then the family split up instead of being closer. And at a time where we've lost a beautiful loved one, a lot of the time everybody's fighting over it. It's like seeing vultures circling, which is really sad. And I think the thing is, take the photos, create the memories, go out and do fun things, and lie out on the, out in the backyard and look at the stars and see, a meteor shower, or you go for a walk down the beach, find a shell, just do things that are going to be memories. And especially with the kids, it's important because, in the future, there's going to be thousands of pictures of our kids because they all do selfies, and they're all on Instagram and things. But it's also getting in there with the loved one, because a lot of the time, you might go and do something, but you take the photo, but you're not in the photo. So it's like,
yes, that's true. I went to a funeral recently, and that was one thing. My takeaway was like, I'm taking more photos, like, because sometimes I actually don't want to take photos because I don't want to be the one to pull out the camera and like not be in the moment. But then it's like, no, actually, I do want to have these photos. So yeah, just get out there, humans, live your life. Exactly. Enjoy the moments, all the little things and the big things, and let's not take this for granted. Hey, our chance here in this one this particular body, this particular time and space.
I totally agree with you. And I think at this time of the year, I always do a spiritual bucket list for what I want to try and do in the future. So I tick off the things that I've done, and it could be, like I said, seeing a shooting star. It doesn't have to be things that cost money. It could be going for a walk or just going somewhere and seeing a loved one, but or going to a concert. Doesn't, it could be whatever you want it to be. But I think I always do it, and I put it as a screensaver on my phone, and in the middle I put infinite abundance symbol, so that I have enough of everything that I need.
Yes.
And I think putting that energy out there, but it's fun to sort of think about things. What would you like to do with your family?
Yes.
And just create memories, and most of all, tell everybody how much you love them while they're here, because so
absolutely.
many people endeavour and find it really hard because they didn't get to say those words they wanted to say before they pass. But we always think we've got more time. That's something we don't talk about. Yeah. Because it's not going to happen to us, but it is.
Yeah, every single one of us and all of our friends and all of our family, but for some reason we don't talk about it. But I'm the big on that as well. Like I want to live every day like it could be the last, and to share that love and not hold it back. Like make amends, forgiveness. Just life's too short. Life's too short.
Exactly. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Hugs, I think.
What did you say?
And I said, and give more hugs.
More hugs, yes. Oh, yes, more affection, more. I mean, I'm very tactile. It's kind of, if you're in my presence, I will probably have my hands on you.
I'm the same.
Yeah, you're the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's just that connection of who we are, and that's one particular thing that my guides are very big on. That we've got the physicality here, and they love it. Like, oh, sit down. They sit down in my chair like this. Oh. So yeah, not take it for granted. Thank you so much. I have just thoroughly enjoyed this. I know are you in New South Wales?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep an eye on events you're running or live things, and I want to get my butt up there one day, Debbie, and I'm going to come to something that you run, and I get to meet you in real and give you a big squeeze and a hug, because I'm really grateful. Yeah.
I was just starting to do live online, like live events. We're doing one tonight called One More Day with You, and it's sort of based on the fact when people don't get to say goodbye to their loved ones. I've written a meditation, and we're going to meet our loved one, and then they're going to write a love letter to them at the end of the meditation.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Unfortunately, I'm going to be posting this later that people won't get that event, but jump onto the website and I'll have all your links, and people can jump onto your future events as well. So thank you my love.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you. Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful, and I'm sure I'm going to do more of these events in the future, of connecting people. I just think it's so important for us to be connected and just to be with our tribe and understand all the
I agree. Absolutely. It's so good. And with the wealth of experience and the decades that you've been in this space, like for the more newbies like me coming in, it's gold. It's really total gold. So thank you for your contribution and for continuing to do the work despite all of the challenges that you have literally, genuinely, physically had.
I think it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I feel really privileged that I've had that opportunity, because it's to help others. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we're signing off.
See you later.
Yeah.
So grateful to you for listening. I'd love you to share this. If you got value, rate and review my podcast so I can reach more humans. For loads of free resources, go to aliciatemmerman.com. And that'll take you to my offerings in spaces I play in, my spiritual wellness business, retreats, one-on-ones and other things. Also, I love working with couples, so check out the Marriage Hub. Finally, I have been an employment lawyer for over 20 years now, and I work in workplace mediation, conflict resolution, and mediation in other areas too. Dumais, D-U-M-A-I-S, Workplace Services is where you'll find all that info. I love you. Take good care of you.